I know what most of you guys are thinking. Angel, what is a Mega Man? Is it a new restaurant? Maybe a new condom brand? In all seriousness, it's probably not a bad name for a condom brand. But anyways, all jokes aside, today we're going to be talking about one of the best underrated gaming franchises out there. There have been a number of fantastic spin-offs as well as some collections that have been released for the Wii, for the Switch, even the GameCube console as well. But the original one was released for the NES way back in 1987, and it has been a mainstay of the gaming community now for almost 40 years. There was also an animated series based on the video game franchise, which was pretty good. Honestly, if you grew up without Mega Man in your life, it's pretty sad. But that's the great thing about the internet. You can always go back, maybe watch some of the animated episodes, or even take it a step further, play some of the old NES games, or even some of the Game Boy versions. Regardless, the main reason I wanted to make today's video is not to talk about the gaming franchise specifically, but more about the Jada Toys announcement recently that they would be taking over the franchise. And I have to say, I've had a very small sample size in terms of Jada Toys, but I really like what they're doing. They're not necessarily picking up the big giant franchises or the bigger licenses. They don't have Marvel, they don't have DC, they don't have any of those big names, but they did pick up the Street Fighter license as well as some of like the old school cereal mascots. They do have like Chester Cheetah as well upcoming, and now they pick up the Mega Man franchise. They're smaller little gaming pockets or smaller little collectible pockets of, you know, fans or rabid fans that would go after these, but they don't have necessarily the biggest fan base. But I respect that. I respect the fact that they're willing to take on these smaller little companies or these smaller little licenses and actually do quality product, regardless of whether they are going to sell a lot of these or not. And we're seeing the Street Fighter wave, for example, hit in small little waves. They're not releasing everything all at once. My theory is they're kind of gauging where the fan support is at. Clearly, they know that they're not going to have the kind of support that maybe McFarlane or Hasbro has with their licenses. So they have to be a little bit more cautious. And we're seeing, like I said, a lot of that with the Street Fighter license. They're kind of releasing them very little at a time. They're kind of seeping out here and there, but not all at once. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that maybe they're not as confident being a brand new toy company, or maybe they don't have the capital to try to go after a large order and then maybe have a lot of these go on clearance eventually and maybe them lose money. But like I said, it's really nice to see them going after these smaller licenses, and for them to go after Mega Man, it really brings a lot of nostalgia back into our lives. I'm only going to talk about the figures that are already in plastic. I'm not going to be talking about any digital renders because I know there is a second wave that has been announced, but I'm only going to concentrate on the first three figures that were announced. We're talking about Mega Man, Fireman, and Iceman. And yes, these figures will also be around that 1/12 scale range. They will measure somewhere along the lines of 4 to 4.5 inches, and they will all have about 15 points of articulation, which isn't bad for a figure that's, as I mentioned, going to be roughly about 4 inches. They will also all retail for $19.99, which is something that I've seen consistently from this line. It's not something that's common with other OMs, but almost everything that they've decided to roll out up to this point has been relatively affordable. Their Jada Toy Street Fighter line was only $24.99, and then this line is going to be $19.99, which if you compare to some of like the Jax movie Mario action figures, which come with no accessories, usually those retail for about $20. And then these particular Mega Man figures will come with quite a few accessories for a $19.99 price point. The Mega Man will come with a couple of extra hands, so 4 hands total, along with his hand blaster, which will also come with a blast effect piece. And they're also giving you the option to display the blast effect in midair with an extra stand that will hold the blast effect. And if all that wasn't enough, he also comes with an extra head, which basically looks like me after somebody drank all of my Mountain Dew. Iceman also comes with some extra hands as well as an extra head. He also includes a stand for the effect piece. I really like the heads on this particular figure, primarily because of that extra sculpting that they did around the face. He's supposed to be wearing kind of like a winter coat on top, which is a a really nice addition from Jada Toys. It's probably something that they could have gotten away with not including, or they could have just reused as much of the Mega Man sculpt as they possibly could, but they decided to give it a new head sculpt, which again, really nice touch from Jada Toys. Fireman also comes with an extra head sculpt, so it gives you options of displaying him multiple ways. He has a head sculpt with the fire effect coming out of his head, and then the other without the effect. He also doesn't come with any hands. If you guys have played the video game, you guys will be familiar with the fact that he does not have any hands. I know I could easily throw in a joke about how he can't touch himself, but that's inappropriate, guys. We're talking about action figures here, but he does come with 3 different fire effects, which can be ported onto the blast cannons on either side of his hand, and also comes with the stand, which is pretty consistent throughout the wave, it seems, at least for wave 1. Not a lot of paint. It seems like the plastic is just that particular color for each figure, but I don't mind it. As I mentioned, it is a $20 price point. It does come with a decent amount of accessories, and the fact that they also come with 15 points of articulation is actually pretty impressive. We did get to see them posed at SDCC 2023, and they seem to have a decent range of mobility. We will only be able to know how crazy the articulation is once we have it in hand, but as I mentioned, it is a $20 collectible. I know I keep harping on that, but I don't expect the articulation to be too outlandish or too ridiculous. As long as you can get them in some pretty solid poses, I think I would be happy with that. But we did see a couple of poses pop up online for Mega Man, which were pretty good. Overall, they seem to be somewhat dynamic, pretty impressive range of motion. I think the biggest deciding factor are going to be those ankles and how much rocking and how much can really pivot. Those are going to be one of the big deciding factors of how well the action figure poses. The only nitpick that I have about the waves so far was the packaging. I know they went above and beyond with the Jada Toys packaging. They made like a little arcade display box. You really forced the collectors to at least pick up one and keep the box, or potentially pick up 2. One to, actually open up and destroy the box, and then the other one to maybe display in box. So I think that would have been a really nice touch if they had done something similar. Although I understand, because the Street Fighter franchise is more known for those cabinets, whereas in the Mega Man franchise isn't really known for that specifically. But it would have been a really nice touch, maybe in like a controller packaging, or maybe like a cartridge or something along those lines. Not a deal breaker at all, but it would have been a really nice touch, considering they did that for the cereal mascots as well as the Jada Toys Street Fighters. But again, minor little thing that I wished would have come together, but again, not really that big of an issue. But enough ranting. I genuinely believe that this line, this particular wave, has potential to be one of the best waves so far this year. McFarlane has given us some fantastic stuff. Hasbro's done some really impressive work, but if Jada Toys is able to pull this off, I think it will definitely be one of the more impressive feats, just because of the fact, as I mentioned prior, that this is a very small license with a very small fan base, but they still took the risk. And if they're able to land this correctly, I think, as I mentioned, potentially could be like some of the best action figures of the year. But let me know down in the comment section what your thoughts are. I'm very curious to see where everybody is at with this particular line, or with Jada Toys in general. Let me know down below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.